Ramsajivam Sahadevam Sahadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Dev Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagunalalitam Shri Vishakavatam Shah He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Gata Radha Kanta Nuja Dr. Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaveshwari Varshabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. Welcome to this Bhagavad Gita class. So we are now getting into the shloka number 56. So till date we have been discussing about Sthita Pragnasya Ka Bhasha, where Arjuna, this is the question from Arjuna in shloka number Sthita Pragnasya Ka Bhasha Samadhistasya Kesava Sthita Kim Prabhasheta Kim Aseta Vrajeta Kim. So, last class we looked into the symptoms or characteristics of a Sthita Pragna person whose consciousness is fixed. In today's class, we will be talking about the Sthita Pragna's response to dualities, how he responds to dualities, how he is able to. Speech is a word which is used by Arjuna in the sloka, but it means how the Sthita person responds to the dualities of life. So, with this note, let us go to the shloka. So, shloka number 2.56 is Dukkeshu Anudvignavana Sukkeshu Vigataspra Vitaraga Bayakroda Sthitadir Munir Uchchate. So, Vitaraga Bayakroda will be repeated also in shloka number in chapter number 4. But now the focus in this shloka is how introspective sage sits or how introspective sage controls the senses. So dukkeshu anudvignamana without being agitated by three modes of material nature. So one must not get agitated. The one's mind should not get agitated. So how is it possible? So that is what is going to be talked about. Sukkeshu vigataspra, not getting uh, not getting interested in happiness of life. For example, if a guest goes to an opulent home, if he is treated very well, then and is given a lot of food to eat, then the the person should person should probably bless the guest. But if he goes to another home and doesn't get any proper treatment, he cannot curse them. So the behavior of a Sthitadir Muni is beyond this type of happiness and distress. He should give up this type of happiness and distress. As long as we are in the material world, these happiness and distress will be there. There is no way we can avoid them. However, what we can do is we can learn how to deal with them properly. When there is happiness generated in contact with the sense object, then there is a spruha. This is spruha. We get the spruha. Interest. There is an interest. So there is an interest. Somebody praise me, uh, then I will desire that the person speak more and more about it because I am interested in my glorification. When there is a distress generated due to contact with some sense object, we get agitated or we lose interest. Somebody scolds me, then I feel why I should live in this world. No? Why I should have this relationship, which is so painful. So this is so there is an interest and no disinterest in our life based on whether the contact of the sense object gives us pleasure or pain. So Sthitadir Muni remains undisturbed in all the circumstances. So where is speech here? So there is no speech. But what we have to understand is speech is determined by our thoughts. So, Stitadir means Kim Pravasheta, Kim Ase. Pravasheta means how is Stitadir Muni talking? If you go to Stita Pragnasya Ka Bhasha, स्थित 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 स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का वा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितदे किं प्रभाषेत किम् आसीत व्रजेत किम्. So there is nowhere mention of sitting or standing or walking. Nothing is mentioned here. It is more talked about is what is talked about is mana. What we are most concerned here is mana. So whereas speech is not here, but what determines our speech is our thought. And Stitadir Muni's speech cannot be superficial. It cannot be based on contact with the sense object. There are people in this material world who speak very nicely, very politely, but internally they are very cunning and wild. So this is the duplicity of the material world. So speech of a person is elaborated in the next verse. If you see the next verse, you just go there. यः सर्वत्र अभिस्नेयस् तत् तत् प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दन्ति नाद्वेष्टि tasya pragna pratishthita. The speech of a person is, in the material world, one who is unaffected by whether whatever is good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it or not despising it, is in perfect knowledge. So, in this verse, the main focus is the mentality of the person. The speech of a person is nothing but the manifestation of the thought. And most of the time, we speak our thoughts internally. Though we do not speak externally out, we speak our thoughts internally. These thoughts should be free from disturbance due to pain and pleasure of the material world. So there is one shloka 4.10. Vitaraga Bayakroda Manmaya Ma Upashita Bhava Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhava Magata. So if you see this Vitaraga Bayakroda and this Vitaraga Bayakroda are repeating. So this means so here it means being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by my knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So, so this means if you see who is a person, the person whose thought is fully absorbed in Krishna. So he is the person who can give up attachment, fear, and anger. If you go to 2.56, in the purport, uh, Prabhupada is mentioning the word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to factual conclusion. And who is Titadir Muni? Sthitadir Muni, as mentioned here in Belloc, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Sthitadir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all business of creative speculation. So, speculators generally relate all the events and try to associate them to a cause. However, the original cause is not clearly known. Okay. So the original cause, Sthitadir Muni knows that he is Krishna. The concept of casualty, there is word. So the cause and effect. So if you see here, So, but one fixed in Krishna consciousness as neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success in Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So the concept of casuality itself is a mental construct. That means whether we will associating everything to a cause and effect is a mental construct. The cause and effect may be applicable in small chemical or physical experiment within a controlled environment in a laboratory. However, in a real life situation, it is very, very difficult to ascertain cause and effect as a source of variation. In any particular life situation, it is very difficult. Thus, the impact or the cause and effect relationship generally leads to infinity, and hence we can speculate in many ways. But a Krishna conscious person does not speculate in all or different ways, but just focuses on Krishna, and he whether he is success or no success, which could be because of different causal reasons. He thinks that okay, I have put my effort for Krishna, whether it's success or not, I am not going to worry much about it. He remains steady in his determination to serve Krishna. That is how the Krishna conscious person works. There is one more shloka in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhavantam evanucharam nirantara prashanta nihesha manoratantara kadam aikantika nitya kinkara parashyami sa nata jivitam. Sanat. By serving you constantly, one is freed from all material desires and is completely pacified. When shall I engage as your permanent, eternal servant? Always feel joyful to have such a perfect master. So, this shloka emphasizes that I do not do anything. I am not doing anything for myself. I do it for my master Krishna. And I do not want anything in this world. I have got my shelter who is Lord. So, the word used here, sanat, is very, very important. That I am not uh, orphan, but I am taking shelter of Lord. So, I am sanata. So the Anatha do not have any shelter, but I have shelter in Krishna. Thus, this fixing that Krishna is all for me gives lot of stability. This brings lot of stability, clarity in our life. The mind does not wander here and there. There is no question of pain and pleasure. Hence, we remain fixed in our goal and service. This is Sthitadir Muni. We remain fixed in Krishna, fixed in Krishna for both goal and our service to Him. We know by doing service we go to Krishna, and so we engage in the we have clarity of goal as well as why we do the service. So that is very very clear. Whenever we get into trouble in our life, we think that we do not deserve this trouble is too much for us, but this is our default assumption. Then the question comes, why is then these troubles happen in our life? So when it is something good happening in our life, we don't question why such good thing is happening. But when something bad happens, then we question why it is happening. So from the point of view of karmi, we can see that we get something good also in our life. A student may say that I studied well, so I got good marks. Some student may say that I studied well, but I still got low marks. So the same student, if you ask him, he will agree that sometimes he had not studied at all, but whatever questions he prepared for, those questions appeared in the exam, and he got good marks. So the question, no, so there is always some uh, higher involvement there in life. There are some higher forces which control the outcome, and in some cases, we see we are able to directly link with our work to the result. Some cases, we are not able to explain it. Thus, there is lucky and unlucky situations in life, and this we need to manage. This is easier when we are in Krishna consciousness. Krishna conscious person will understand, yes, this is destiny in my life, and whenever there is a problem in life, the problems, he thinks that these problems are smaller than what I generally deserve. So Krishna has made my life easier. And when there are pressures in life, devotee understand that he doesn't deserve it. It is Krishna's mercy, and hence he tries to apply the positive things in Krishna's service. So whatever good he gets, he gives it for Krishna service or applies it for Krishna service. So if you see the life of Prabhupada, practically he did not fear at all. He went all alone to United States, and he became. How does this fearlessness came to him? Fearlessness comes because of awareness of presence of Krishna, which even the fear personified is afraid of. There is a shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. Appanna Shamshatim Goram Yennama Yosho Granan Tato Sadhyo Vimuchet Yad Viveti Swayam. Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately, even by unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. So everybody has fear, but by taking shelter of Krishna, we can get fearlessness. Krishna is very huge. In front of him, all miseries are small. When we understand this, then we are freed from fear. So Srila Prabhupada was um, fearless in his approach. In When he took up his mission, he was completely fearless. Devotees are not angry because devotee knows that Krishna is in control, and hence he has nothing to lose control of, and hence doesn't get angry. This anger in material world comes because of frustration. This anger, when internalized, becomes hatred, resentment, and this comes out in multiple ugly ways. When it comes out, it shows, as a loss of temper, shout, fighting, fist fighting, and so on. So, Srila Prabhupada kept on going in his endeavor to establish Krishna conscious movement all over the world. He never felt frustrated because he was always thinking that he is doing it for his spiritual master's desire to fulfill spiritual master's desire. So Srila Prabhupada, of course, got angry with his disciples, but Srila Prabhupada was never under the control of anger. It was only with the focus of improvement of his disciples, training of his disciples, he got anger. He was never controlled by anger. So this is the internal thought process before there is a speech. So that is why we talked about Dukkeshu Anudigdamana, Sukkeshu Vigataspra, Vitaraga Bayakroda, Stitadir Munir Uchete talks about speech. Next is 2.57. Yah sarvatra abhisnehas tat tat prape shubha shubham nabhinandanti nadveshti tasya pragna pratishtita. So in this world, there is good and bad, shubha ashubha, which will be constantly coming and going. When they come, how should we react? Can we become blind? Whatever happens, is it okay? It doesn't matter. Is this a right spirit of a devotee that whatever comes good or whatever comes bad, uh, devotee doesn't really consider is important? Is this a right spirit? Can we behave like a person who is in anesthesia? A person who is in anesthesia does not feel anything pain or pleasure. When his body is cut or massaged, he doesn't feel pain or pleasure. So, can a devotee be insensitive to everything material? So, this insensitivity will make him impervious to anything good or bad. So the idea of this verse is not that. Dukkeshu anudik, ya sarvatra visneyas tattat prape shubha shubham naminandanti na desti tasya pragna pratishtha. So devotees do not become insensitive. Rather, they focus on sensitizing themselves for the spiritual matter. So material things are perceived by devotees, but they do not get disturbed. So here, the good and bad thing of the material world does not disturb the devotee. So if you see the example of Srila Prabhupada, he was really concerned about number of people who attend the preaching program. But his focus was not how many people are coming to the program. His preaching was intense, whether it is a room conversation with his disciples or a Pandal program where thousands of devotees were assembled or thousands of attendees assembled. He was always enthusiastic to speak about Krishna. He was also very concerned about the results to come out and how things will emerge out. But that was not the primary focus. The primary focus was that his service to Krishna, and he never wanted it to be impeded, and he continued it in all circumstances. So, we can see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains this. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil because this world is full of duality. But the one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in perfect transcendental position, technically called as samadhi. So here there is one important line which is called as upheaval. So upheaval generally has a negative connotation. This typically means agitation or disturbance. So here, why Srila Prabhupada is telling upheaval is good or bad, good or evil. Anything that distracts us from our focus is called upheaval. When we are successful in our endeavor, we let the guard down, and then Maya can easily attack us. Thus, we should not get distracted by good also. In Mahabharat war, Bhishma Dev actually fell on the 10th day. 11th and 12th day was day of Drona. Drona demonstrated tremendous prowess. He made Avok. On 12th day, Abhimanyu was killed, and on 13th day of Mahabharat war, Arjuna vowed to kill revenge Jayadratha. Arjuna stormed through the Kaurava army, and at the fag end of the day, he was facing eight Maharathas who have formed a fort kind of formation around Jayadratha. So Duryodhana actually put these eight Maharathas to guard Jayadratha. Arjuna was close to Jayadratha, yet he was very, very far away. As the enemy ranks were volleying rain of arrows on Arjuna, Arjuna was barely able to maintain his position. Soon the sun was about to set. At that point, Krishna covered the sun with his Sudarshan Chakra, and when the sun disappeared, Kauravas erupted in joy. However, Krishna indicated to Arjuna to keep his bow ready uh, because sun is yet to set. In Mahabharata, Jayadratha is a son of Vrudakshetra. Vrudakshetra. Vrudakshetra was a king who ruled in Sindhu and Sauvira. He was actually also a rishi. So Vrudakshetra, when Jayadratha was born, there was a Asiravani saying that his son will become a great warrior, but he will be killed by his head, being separated from his body by a great Kshatriya. So when he came to know, his father came to know about Jayadratha's father came to know about this. He said that whoever drops the head of his son on this earth will have his own head broken into 100 pieces. So Krishna knew this curse and advised Arjuna to use Brahmastra to behead Jayadratha and direct the head of Jayadratha to fall on the lap of Vridakshatra, who was in tapasya at Samat Panchaka. So when sun was hidden, Kauravas thought that the sun has already set and were making fun of Arjuna. Jayadratha came out of the protection of Maharathas and declared that he would personally set funeral pyre for Arjuna to get into. Soon Krishna withdrew his Sudarshan Chakra and Arjuna followed the instruction of Krishna. He beheaded Jayadratha and head fell in the lap of Vridakshatra. Thus, that Arjuna had technically absolved himself from the act of dropping the head on the earth. That duty was left to Vridakshatra, who performed it unknowingly, just stood up and the head fell down on the ground, held rolled down on the ground, and Vridakshtra's head split into 100 pieces. So here, Krishna did everything to protect Arjuna and his vow. Most important thing that we need to know here is Kauravas got distracted momentarily out of pleasure and they lowered their guard. When they did this, Arjuna and Krishna used the opportunity to kill Jayadratha. Thus, pleasure is also an upheaval. If we lose our focus, even in terms of pleasure, then there is a possibility that we can fall down from our no, our correct position in devotional service. Therefore, such a consciousness in Krishna situates so what? But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna. So this is samadhi. This is technically samadhi. So this is very, very important for us to understand. I'll go to 2.58. यदा सम्मर्ते चायं कूर्मो अंगानिव सर्वश इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियर्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. So you can see here 2.58 also is tasya prajna pratishtita. 2.57 also is tasya prajna pratishtita. Tasya prajna pratishtita. So both have the same line. The material world. So in 2.57, it means the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever is good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Here, in 2.58, one who is able to withdraw his senses. So, Kurma Angani Sarvasha Yada Sammarte Chaya. When I am he who can wind up just like Kurma Angani Sarvasha. When all together tortoise can withdraw its limbs. So Sammarte winds up Indriyani, Indriyartebhya, senses from sense objects. A person who is able to withdraw the senses from the sense objects, just like a tortoise withdraws his limbs. He is pragna pratishtha. His consciousness is firmly fixed. So this sloka is the beginning of explanation of devotional service. Though it is not explicitly mentioned here, the idea that we need to withdraw the sense from external gives the gives the gives us the understanding that senses need to be engaged in something better. So now if you see the shloka number 2.55, श्री भगवान प्रजा इति यदा कामं सर्वान् पार्थो मनोगतान् आत्मनि एव आत्मनः स्थित प्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते. So here Krishna is telling, O Partha, when a man gives all varieties of desires for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is in pure transcendental consciousness. So the withdrawal from external is possible only when we withdraw our sense organs from the sense objects. So from mental concoction. So mental concoction and desire for sense gratification is possible only when we withdraw senses from the sense object. So this is something which we need to understand. So the first characteristic is to withdraw senses from the sense object. How will this happen? This will happen like a tortoise, just like tortoise takes the limbs from the sense objects. The person has to withdraw the sense objects from the senses from the sense objects. So why there is a tortoise used here? Tortoise pulls the soft limbs into the strong shells. Therefore, when it withdraws all its limbs, it is well protected. Same way, senses are all weak points. Senses are all weak points. The enemy always look for the weak points. Like in the boxing game, there is a strategy hit where it hurts. By this, the soldier or the player can be easily be brought down. That is why sensors are very, very weak. So when Krishna says, when the mind is thus purified, find satisfaction. How is when mind is purified? When the with senses are absorbed from the sense objects, because senses are very weak. It needs to be protected. So there are many yoga systems available. One of the yoga system is Ashtanga yoga. In Ashtanga yoga, there is one thing called as pratyahara, where yogi draws his senses inwards. Same thing Krishna will is touching upon here. It will be discussed in detail when we are in sixth chapter. But the idea is that we need a proper plan to when we engage our senses and when we should withdraw it. When there is a need to speak, devotee will speak about Krishna. Rest of the time, he will remain silent. Same way, devotee uses his eyes appropriately. Eyes are like radars, which look for danger in the horizon. Eyes drive deep, no, have eyes are related with deep desires and always look for dangers and get exposed and get attacked by the sense objects. This is like, after spotting enemy, instead of attacking or running away, we welcome and embrace the enemy. That is what happens with eyes. Therefore, we should not use our eyes to scan the horizon, but look inwards. Withdraw our senses from externals like tortoise withdraws its limbs, and then look inwards. So there are two things which we need to understand. One is weariness and wariness. Weariness is like tiredness, but wariness is to become watchful, become guard. So by constantly looking for sense objects in all direction, we become completely tired. We face weariness in our life. This is because there are too many desires we have, and when we want to fulfill it, we pang for fulfillment of desire. This is like a needle in the heart. This is because there is a conflict internal to us, and that we want many things to be fulfilled in life. When we are not able to achieve, then there is a needle pricking in our heart. So there is always a gap between our fantasies and the finances. What all we can want to get and what all we cannot get, or what all we want and what we can get, there is always a gap. The more we pray for our desires, um,
yato narsimha yato yami tato narsimha bahir narsimha hridayi narsimha bahir.
the more we pray on the sense and focus on sense object, this gap increases. So the entire advertisement industry, if you see, just fuels our fantasies more and more. So it always ensures that there is a gap between our want and whether we'll be able to fulfill our want. So no matter how much we have, we want more. So this is what the focus of advertisement industry is. And hence, we keep fueling our senses. Therefore, we become tired. This gap of between our fantasies and finances de-energizes us. It wears us down. We become tired. So even if there is a person with lot of money, he cannot say that his desires are all fulfilled. This is because of limitation of the body. There is a physical limitation. I can get everything I want in the world, but body has a limitation. I cannot eat everything in the world. I may be interested to eat lot of sweets, but my body cannot allow me to do it. Thus dwelling on sense objects makes us tired, weary. To prevent this weariness, we need to be wary. How can we vary? We need to be very cautious. We should not engage our senses unnecessarily. If there is no business, keep the senses calm. Why should I look around if I do not have any business? So, as Srila Prabhupada tells in this purport, how a devotee should be engaging in our senses. Unless one is able to follow the do's and don'ts, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set here is tortoise. A tortoise can at any moment wind up its senses, exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the sense of a Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. So this is very, very, very important for us. So we need to minimize our weariness. We need to maximize our wariness. Question: do I need to look here? Do I need to think now? By this, we increase our weariness. Should I look there? Should I eat this now, or should I keep postponing? Can I focus on chanting now? All this type of questions helps us to become watchful. There are times when people try to check their progress in spiritual life by exposing themselves to sense objects. This is not the way to test our spiritual development. This means even if we are nothing is happening, what happens is deep impressions. These impressions happen subtly and they are created in our heart. These impressions may trouble us in future. Thus, as much as possible, we need to try avoid exposure of senses to sense objects. So exposure of senses to sense object is like pinching a sleeping tiger. This act of pinching will wake up the tiger, which will devour us. So lust and greed are like this tiger. They are sleeping now. So when we do not disturb them, continue our devotional service, they will continue sleeping and they would die. Thus, we need to allow them to hibernate and terminate itself. Do not disturb. The best way to check our advancement is to increase our dedication to Krishna and commitment to his service rather than exposing our senses and getting into trouble. This view will help, will bring steadiness in our devotional service. We can see the example of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was a Namacharya. He did not go to the prostitution center to display his strength. On the other hand, when prostitute came to his home to disturb him, he remained focused on his devotional service and he was committed to the service. So soon, prostitute also became devotee. So this is how we should do. In our current day scenario, it is not possible to avoid exposure. Thus, in addition to minimizing the exposure, we need proper positive engagement. So, how we can do positive engagement? Krishna, obviously, Krishna will explain the next verse. But from our side, we should know that we should engage our day in devotional service. Getting up early in the morning, and then so if we have to get up early in the morning, we have to sleep early the previous night, so that brings discipline in our life. And then 3:50 we get up and then attend Mangalarti at 4:30, then complete few rounds, and at 6 o'clock we start doing some service, destined service, and then read Srila Prabhupada's books for 1.5 hours, and so on. So this way, we ensure that we remain focused in our activities and withdraw the senses from the sense object and engage positively in Krishna consciousness. So in this verse, the main focus is minimize engagement, just like tortoise observes. In the next verse, it is much more interesting. Can see Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavrajam rasopyasya param dristvani vartate. Vishaya means objects. Vinivartante means avoid engagement. Practice to be refrained from. Avoid engagement. Ahar means food. Nir ahara by negative restrictions. Typically, nir ahar means starving or fasting. So, sense objects are like food for senses. When there are no sense objects, the senses will feel agitated. Just like on the day of fasting, tongue gets agitated to taste different things. Stomach get agitated to take more and more food. In the same way, eyes become hungry for seeing different pleasant things. Hands become hungry to touch soft things. Ears want to eat, ears want to hear sweet sounds. So, this hunger are not essential hunger. These are all irresistible things, but they are not essential things. A person who is alcoholic feels alcohol is essential, uh, but we know that it is not essential. It is just irresistible. Essential is something without which we cannot survive, like food, water, sleep, air. These are essential things without which we cannot survive. These are objective facts of necessity. Essentiality means facts of necessities in the life. So, essentiality of alcohol is a subjective matter. Thus, it is um, requirement of alcohol for a alcoholic is like a subjective feeling of a necessity. Problems in life occur when there is a misunderstanding between objective fact of necessity. Objective facts are like food, water, sleep, oxygen. These are objective facts of necessity. Subjective feeling of necessity is like alcohol. Generally, meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, they are just subjective feeling. That is why we need to give up these habits. And engagement of senses in Krishna helps us to overcome this subjective feeling of necessity. So when an alcoholic person is given a de-addiction therapy, he understands that he does not require alcohol. Same way, we are in addiction of lust, anger, greed, and so on. Same way, when Krishna consciousness is given to us, we get de-addicted from meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, which appear necessary in our life. These are false subjective feeling. Krishna consciousness drags us out of modes of passion and ignorance and brings us to goodness and then transfers us to transcendence. This is how we free ourselves from craving for sense enjoyment or feeling of necessity. So Vishaya Vinivaratante Nir Aharasya Deina Rasavrajam Rasopiyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate. Thus Krishna consciousness is Param Drishtva. It is a higher taste. By this taste, the craving for lower taste is completely conquered. Nir Aharasya Dehina. The craving for lower taste is completely conquered. So Srila Prabhupada in the translation says, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagement by experiencing taste, higher taste, is fixed in Krishna consciousness. Now, Drištva typically means vision or seeing. It has got nothing to do with taste. So, what is Prabhupada meaning here? So, in this verse, if you see the first line, Vinivartante, one gives up and may want it, gives up, but there is a craving there. That is what it means. And nivartate, nivartate means and does not require. Thus, param drištva means of Krishna consciousness by which the one which he thinks is able to declare, okay, I don't want this anymore taste. Now, if there is a shloka in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, yatro paramate chittam nirudam yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanam atmanam pashyan atmani tushyati shukam atyantikam yattat buddhi grahitayam atindriyam. So, if you see the translation here, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. So, the happiness of Krishna consciousness, though it is beyond material senses, it is still perceived by material senses and it is transcendental. So, though it is transcendental, it can be perceived by the material senses. And when we engage our material senses in higher higher vision or higher taste, then we can become, we can give up the lower taste.
Kalian
So
email di ya, madam.
when we take darshan of deities, we can sing Hare Krishna, hear shloka of Bhagavad Srimad Bhagavatam, take prasadam. So senses act as gateway for transcendence. The source of happiness is ultimately Krishna. So why senses are gateways? Because through that only we will be able to engage ourselves. That is the structure that is given to us. But because the source of happiness is Krishna, the senses are getting purified. The experience of Krishna is not sensory, it is transsensory, it is a spiritual experience. So the chanting of holy name is by senses, but the happiness that we get by chanting the holy name of Krishna is because it is Krishna's name. So Srila Prabhupada is giving a pointer or direction here that transsensory taste of remembrance of Krishna. This is the meaning of higher taste used in the translation. So if you see, so he is giving us that higher taste that we will get by remembrance of Krishna. So chanting the holy names gives us a taste for it, and this is because of remembrance of Krishna. So higher taste is not perceived by tongue or the param dristva, which is given here. Higher taste is complete experiential, or it is an experience. This could be realized either by tongue or deep inside the core of the art without any senses also. Thus, it is an experience of heart which is much higher and richer than the material sense enjoyment. So, Krishna is not explicitly telling what that experience is, but he will be explaining it in 2.61, where he is saying, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara vaseya yasendriyani tasya pragna pratisthita. So he's telling one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me. Krishna is telling about him here. He is known as a man of steady intelligence. Hence, here in chapter 2, Krishna emphasizes the point that only when we experience an higher taste, we can be peaceful. By restraining our senses, ourselves, we end up in self torturing ourselves. There are people who think that restraining material pressure is deprivation. There are people throughout the history of mankind who think celibacy is unnatural. They say that one should not deprive the sense enjoyment. But this not enjoying our senses is against our natural behavior. This is because this type of thinking comes in them because they have not experienced the higher happiness. It is true that depriving of senses can cause psychosis or mental problem. There are people who indulge their senses also too much. They also end up in mental problems. So either we are depressing or indulging in more and more sense activity, there are only problems. Thus, the remedy is to move our consciousness from lower level to the higher level. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the solution for the problems of problems of uncontrolled sense engagement or deprivation of the senses in the, no, in regular activities. Therefore, we should restrain our senses. This is beginning, but that is not the end. So we need to say no to negative and say yes to positive. We are restraining our senses from not engaging in illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, because we want to say yes to Krishna. Therefore, the negative is not a self torture. This is how we should understand. Okay, I stop here. Let us have some question and answer. I'll stop here. Hare Krishna, any questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Tunu now. Prabhuji, can you please explain, like, it's usually very easy, or not very easy, but it's usually easier to handle ourselves in sad times than in happy times. In happy times, it's usually, we become very egoistic or very carefree kind of a situation. We don't realize the reality of the world. How do we keep ourselves grounded in happy times, I guess?
So actually, Prabhupada is telling that we need to give. First of all, we should think that it is all because of Krishna we are getting this happiness.
Hmm.
So that itself is will help us understand that we are not the cause for this happiness. Everything is happening because Krishna is doing this, and therefore we will be conscious. Okay, I have got so much collection today, so I should do Janmashtami very well. I need to buy more dress. So our focus will be to engage the source of happiness. If you have got lot of vegetables, lot of fruits during Madhukari, then we will think how we can use this for Krishna service. So our focus should be what next? Okay, today I have chanted well, 16 rounds. So I should chant tomorrow also very well. So this is how our focus should be. If we, therefore, what we need to maintain consistency. Therefore, actually, the people say, our devotees quote example of Prabhupada. Prabhupada, before he set up ISKCON, he was he was very consistent or persistent in bringing this system of ISKCON. And once ISKCON became very stable and it was a global organization, Prabhupada showed his humility. So there were people who were comparing Prabhupada to God, but he remained very humble and engaged himself in more service of Krishna. So that is how, so in times of difficulties, we should keep consistent tries again and again and again. And when there are success, we should be humble and engage whatever comes out of success again in service of Krishna. So whatever donations Prabhupada used to get, he used to divert it for book distribution or book printing or for temple construction either in Vrindavan or Mumbai. So that is how we should follow. So Prabhupada's example we should take. Prabhu.
Thank you very much.
Any other question from anyone? Okay, if there are no questions, then we stop here. Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhayarcha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. ग्रंथराज भगवद गीता की जय, जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय,
Yeah.
गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरे कृष्णा. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
हरे कृष्णा माता जी.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
धन्यवाद. हरे कृष्णा.